Hello and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that would like to sing a little song for you. Hitler has only got one ball, Goering has two but very small, Himmler has something similar, and Goebbels has nothing at all. Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Castle Itter, the funniest battle of the strangest battle of World War II from TDG.
Ich grolle nicht, und wenn das Herz auch bricht, ewig verlorenes Lieb, ewig verlorenes Lieb, ich grolle nicht, ich grolle. Strahlst in Diamantenpracht, es fällt kein Strahl in deines Herzens.
Castle Itter, the strangest battle of World War II from TDG, commemorates a battle that took place exactly 75 years ago this month in May of 1945. This battle was indeed strange. You had German Wehrmacht alongside Americans, alongside an Austrian resistance fighter, and French POWs as they battled against the fanatical SS still committed to German victory. Right at the end of the war, after Adolf Hitler had committed suicide, but before the Flensburg government had surrendered to the Allies, you have this roughly week where there is still fighting going on throughout Germany. You had American units had found Castle Itter, which is a kind of a POW camp for high-ranking and very famous French figures. They move in there. The Wehrmacht there agrees to kind of surrender to them, and they are moving in, freeing these French prisoners. But very quickly, German SS units begin to attack the Americans. The Wehrmacht units inside that had surrendered to the Americans, they go ahead, they agree, they begin to fight back. You also have an Austrian resistance fighter who helped join them as well. And at one point in the battle, one of the French POWs, a tennis star, actually escaped from the castle, made it to the American unit that was a little ways away, and the American regiment then comes and saves the day by fighting the SS there. So, very weird battle, multinational battle, but not very many men. Maybe 24 or so fighters were actually there, and maybe not quite that many, were actually defending the castle against this SS regiment here. So it's a very, very interesting battle that was fought. So the game board here is a map of the castle and the surrounding area. Now, essentially, there are different parts of the castle. There's a north terrace, south terrace, keep, etc., etc. You also have a tank which guarded the main road, the Bespot and Jenny. You have a gatehouse, too, right behind it. Now, you have, on the periphery of the board, different kind of spawning places for your different SS units that will be attacking it, as well as tracks. Now, the spawning places range from 2 to 12, and they all kind of move toward the castle, but they kind of coalesce into 3 different kind of points that get up right next to the castle itself. Now, what's interesting here is there are different colors depending on the part of the castle where a defender is staying, different spaces that are colored different, and then the tracks that are moving there. Essentially, this is line of sight. If you are on a green spot, you can attack people in green. If you are in a yellow spot, you can attack people in yellow. Some of the spots where the defenders exist have 2 different colors. That means they can attack attackers from either of those tracks. Now, in setting up the game, you have to put the 5 French prisoners in the cellar. They remain there until all the other resistors are out, except for 3 who are reinforcements who go off the board who come in later in the game. But you put 1 rifleman unit from the SS in all the starting spaces along the tracks. And then, on your turn, you go ahead and you can you can essentially take 5 actions. So you can place 5 of the defenders on the board and take an action with them. And there are a few different actions you can take. For instance, you can move to a different space within the same kind of area of the castle, in which case you can move and still take an action. You can move to a different location, in which case you move and then you're done. You can't take anything further action. And then, of course, you can take an attack action. Now, your attack actions are very important because you can essentially roll the die to see if you can hit one of the guys coming at you. And there are going to be different units coming at you, riflemen, but you're also going to have scouts and Sturm units, as well as machine guns and mortars. You pick your target, assuming you've got line of sight, meaning you're on the same color, and you roll a single d6. Now, you compare that d6 to the defensive number of that unit. If the roll is equal to or greater than that defensive number, then that unit is taken off the board. He's eliminated. But if it's not, if it's lower, then nothing happens. But essentially, that's how you attack the various people that are trying to attack you. You also take a suppress action. Essentially, what you do is everybody that fires, they have kind of their attack value and their suppress value. And a lot of times it's going to be, 1 and 1, but sometimes you may have other things. And if you're in a specific space, like on the tank or in another location, you may gain different values to roll for those. If you choose to do the suppress action, what that means is instead of actually firing on somebody, you simply place a number of suppress tokens into a box at the bottom that matches the color of the track you're firing into. And what that means is later you're going to have a chance to make sure no more units come in out of that area. Now, after you take all of those actions, you go ahead and you flip your character to its exhausted side. So then it's on that side. Now, over the course of the game, some of your units may get disrupted. You put a disrupt token on them. That means you can't do anything until you get rid of that. So another action is kind of the refresh action, which means you can flip them from their exhausted side to their ready side, or you can remove a disrupted token. If it's exhausted and got a disrupted token, you can just remove the disrupted token. You can't remove the disrupted token and move the guy to its unexhausted side. Now, some of the characters also have different special actions they can do. For instance, some characters have a command action, which means if you've got characters around it that are on their exhausted side, with the command action, you can flip him over to exhaust that command, but then you can actually turn over all the other characters, making them on their ready side. However, they can't move again that turn. You have to put a token on them saying they can't do anything again that turn, but the next turn they will be able to. Essentially, it's a way to unexhaust characters more efficiently than you would be just doing them one at a time. Also, you have Baratra, I believe his name is, who is the French tennis star who is being held in the castle, and he's the person who historically escaped from the castle. He can attempt to make an escape at some time during the game. If ever he's in a part of the house and you've succeeded in completely clearing the entire track of that color from of Germans, of SS, then he can go ahead and escape. Now, what he escapes is, that means you're going to go ahead and mix in a reinforcement deck toward the bottom of the SS deck, reinforcement card at the bottom of the SS deck, meaning reinforcements could come early in the game. Now, at the beginning of the game, you also have to prepare the SS deck. So essentially, you have 4 different sections of the SS deck. You have 1 cards, 2 cards, 3 cards, and 4 cards. You shuffle them all together, then you place the 3 cards on top of the 4, the 2 on top of the 3, the 1 on top of the 2, and there you have your SS deck. So it's going to get progressively harder as you cycle through it. Now, somewhere I believe in 3, you're going to get a reinforcement card, which is going to let you have reinforcements come that help you 3 more characters, including the Austrian resistance fighter. And then again, depending on when Baratra is able to escape, you're going to mix in toward the bottom of the deck the endgame card. The whole regiment comes, in which case the game ends. But what you're going to do now is, after everybody's taking their actions, it is time for the SS to take their actions. Essentially, you draw 3 cards from the top of the deck and you play them one at a time. Now, these cards do different things. Most of them are going to spawn more units. You're going to spawn riflemen, scouts, or Sturm, which are going to advance the track, and these SS units are moving closer and closer toward the end of their respective tracks. That's a bad thing. You don't want that to happen. You may also spawn machine gun units or mortar units, which don't advance the track. They just pop up in the spaces on the periphery, and what they do is they can try to disrupt units in the center of the board, or in the defenders, rather. So you've got to watch out for them. You're also going to have different cards that attack specific locations. Now, these SS, for the most part, don't attack your defenders directly. What they do is they attack the locations you're in. You've got, every location has a defense value that starts at 6, and most of them go 6, 4, 5. You've got the spot in Jenny, which I think has an additional number, if I remember correctly. But what happens is, whenever these attacks happen by these big guns against the positions, you roll a number of die, depending on however many that come up. For instance, one of the guns may say you roll 5 dice. One of the dice says you roll 4. You roll that number of dice. If any of them hit a 6 and you're on a 6, you have to lower the value to a 5. If ever you roll it again and you get 5, if you've hit that number or greater, you've got to lower the defense value. Now that's important because that's going to make it much easier for units that do target defenders to hit them. And to try to take them out or try to disrupt them. Sometimes you'll pull up cards that activate all the mortars and machine guns, so they all have a chance to try to disrupt units on the board. If you've already got a disruption token and you get a second disruption token, that unit is eliminated from the game. You also have a sniper card, a sniper SS card, that can directly target and kill one of the defenders in the game. So you're essentially going back and forth. You're taking 5 actions. You're laying down, your activation token, so you know who you've activated. Taking 5 actions, trying to clear out the spaces on the tracks, trying to keep the SS as far away from the castle as you can. And then after you take your 5 actions, then you have the SS. You take the 3 cards, and you see those tracks advance from the SS. Now, if ever one of the SS cards is on the final point of that track, and another card would push him into the castle, your castle's breached. You have lost the game. Now, in order to win, you're trying to outlast the deck, meaning if you can get to the end of the deck, you either have gone through all the cards or Baratra is able to escape and that reinforcement card comes in early. As soon as you hit those objectives, the game ends immediately. Now, there's a system for scoring, depending on how many units are still on the board, how many guys you have, and some other factors. It's going to determine whether or not you win. You need a score of at least 1 in order to win the game. If you've got a greater score, you can get different kinds of victories depending on how high your score is. But just getting to that point can be extremely difficult. Nevertheless, if you can hold out till that last card comes up or the reinforcement card comes up and you have at least a score of 1, then you win Castle Itter, the strangest battle of World War II. Historically, I've not been a huge solo gamer guy, but I do enjoy playing them from time to time, and I've been playing them more since, of course, we've had this crazy, crazy pandemic, which you may have read about in Variety. I really do enjoy a really well-balanced game, regardless of whether it's, not just well-balanced, but well-designed game, regardless of whether it is a solo game or a competitive game or a cooperative game, whatever. The game's the thing. And I'm playing this game, and it's a tough game. I've played it a few times now, and it's tough. Haven't won it yet. I've come very close, but I haven't yet won it. And that's good, because you don't want to play a game like this, like a cooperative game or a solo game, where you win your first game. I really don't like that. Or win a lot, right? That's not fun. The fun is when you lose and you lose and you lose, and then when you do win, it's just awesome. So I've been playing this game, and like I said, the first game was just a blowout. I died early. Second game I played, Baratra was able to escape. I put that card in there, and I was 2 cards away from reaching it before the SS was able to breach the castle. It's one of these games where you're playing the beginning of the game, and it's oh, here's a piece of cake. Yeah, do this, boom, boom. Yeah, killing that guy, killing that way. Oh, this is super easy. But then it starts to add up, and then your guys become exhausted and disrupted, and it's harder to get them to the ready state and then take an action with them and then miss. And there's such an investment in everything you're doing here with each action that when it doesn't work out the way you want it to, it really hurts. But it's always exciting. And what I like about this game, too, is it tells a good story. It tells a fun story every time you play it. This is a game, and all really good games do this. They that story comes out in your head, and you start to see these people not just as tokens and counters, but as people desperately trying to hold this position. And it's so personal, and it's so interesting, particularly when you're playing a solo game. You really empathize with these people, and you want them to win so bad. You just feel like they're the ones that are doing the fighting. You're just rolling the die and you're cheering them on. But it's good, and those SS cards can be brutal, particularly toward the end when you have to lay out multiple guys. And what's cool is, and I don't think I mentioned, with the suppressive fire, if you've got suppressive fire tokens, you can roll to try to make sure they don't even come on the board. Those become so important. The first game I played, I was kind of ignoring the suppress action, and then I realized, no, that's good, particularly if you're on spot and jetty, and the gunner on the main gun, if he's got a gun, you got to load the gun too. If his gun, he fires, he gets 6 suppressive tokens. That's huge. That is a big deal. But I like this game. I think it does the history well. It really does justice to the history here. But it's just a fun game. It's really a fun game. A really, really great solo game. I'm going to keep playing for a long time. I recommend this. If you really like solo games, you'll love this one. If you're not so much into solo games, this is the one to start with. This game is freaking awesome. I had so much fun. And it's really no surprise. It comes from David Thompson, who is, of course, the designer of the Undaunted Normandy, Undaunted North Africa. I just played and reviewed the Undaunted North Africa. And I love those games. Absolutely love them. So he is like very quickly becoming one of my favorite designers. And I'm eager to play some more stuff that he's done. But guys, seriously, this is an amazing game. Great production. DVG did a great job here. And if I have any criticism, it's that some things were a little unclear to me in reading the rules. There's still, I mean, there, for instance, it didn't say whether the load action, because you got to load the gun, whether that exhausts somebody. Some of the stuff about how the mortars and the machine guns interacted with the other units was a little unclear. So there is some stuff that I didn't quite get with my first time through. But it's pretty. But other than that, it's really, I think, pretty intuitive, particularly with that line of sight system and that color system. Really like this game. No brainer. 100%. Buy it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We are The Discriminating Gamer, and here's a joke that the Germans used to tell about the Nazi regime. Apparently, the Nazi Winter Relief Fund had a slogan that said, "No one should go cold or be hungry this winter," to which one German worker turned to his friend and said, "Now we can't even do that."
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Could we see more of Sean?
You know, you're really starting to get on my nerves.
Hey, Cody. Who are you talking to?
What do you mean? I was just talking to...